70%, a poll just came out late last year, 70% of millennials now describe themselves as socialist. This would have been unthinkable to earlier generations of Americans, that we would give up all our freedom, that we would give up our understanding of God and trade it in for this cheap fraud that is socialism, that always and everywhere results in death and misery and shortages and tyranny. I mean, it would have been unthinkable.
One of the things I want to talk to you about is right now we are seeing, we just got the letter from our local school district. It actually hasn't been made public yet, but most have seen it, saying that schools are not going to go back in session this fall. They're going to kind of push off the start date because now the teachers are trying to figure out how they're going to do this virtual online school thing. They've just put on order over 14,000 laptop computers to hand out to the students in our area. And they're going virtual here because, it's incredibly dangerous to be in school right now. And what we're seeing is this mass exodus from school. And we're seeing it on two parts. We're seeing those parents who, before all of this, and as Corona started to roll in and the shutdown and all of that, parents saying, you know what, I was thinking about homeschooling before, and now I'm really feeling like I can do this. Now I've seen that I can do this homeschool thing. And so we're just going to go for it. We're going to homeschool. And then you've got another set of parents who don't have a choice. They have to homeschool because they have no school to put their children in. And there are the homeschoolers, and then there are the virtual schoolers, but they're all kind of being clumped into this universe of homeschooling, which is not all the same. It's almost two universes colliding. I know it's very scary for a lot of parents who don't know exactly what they're going to do and how they're going to educate their kids. Where I'm going with this is I see a lot of these parents saying, okay, we can do this for a short time, maybe for the first couple months of school, maybe the first semester. But then as soon as school goes back into session, we're putting our kids back into school. And these are the parents I really want to talk to right now. We've talked about the history of public schools. We've talked about the agenda that has been pushed for decades now to get us to the point where we are. Alex, talk about the reality, and I'm not talking just about Common Core. Talk about the reality of the indoctrination that's happening in the public school system right now. We have many friends we're from California, and so we have many, many friends in California who are public school educators. These are people that we love, people that we've gone to church with, and they say, no, our kids need to be salt and light in the public school. We need to have these Christian kids in there. They're doing okay. And for whatever reason, a lot of these parents are still not really seeing the full picture of the indoctrination that's happening. Can you talk about that and just bring it? I mean, I really want these parents to know the reality of what is happening to the minds of their children, and why so many children, even if their children aren't walking away from the faith, why it's dangerous for kids, not just physically. I mean, of course, we see that my niece goes to a public school in Saugus, California, that just, 6 months ago, or I don't even know when it was, several months ago, they had a school shooting. So physically it's not safe, but spiritually and emotionally, what is the damage that's going on right now?
Yeah, this is, I think, the most important question. And the data now is very clear. Dan Smithwick at the Nehemiah Institute has been studying this for quite some time. And what he's found is that the overwhelming majority of Christian children from good Christian homes who spend 12 years in a government indoctrination center masquerading as a school are going to leave the faith. I mean, it's up there in the 80% range.
Right.
And that's the kids who come from good Christian homes with two Christian parents whose parents take them to church, right? Yeah. I mean, the data now is very clear. My generation, millennials, right? 70%, a poll just came out late last year, 70% of millennials now describe themselves as socialist. This would have been unthinkable to earlier generations of Americans, that we would give up all our freedom, that we would give up our understanding of God and trade it in for this cheap fraud that is socialism, that always and everywhere results in death and misery and shortages and tyranny. I mean, it would have been unthinkable. The reason this is happening is because of the indoctrination going on in the schools. And, nowadays it's gotten so extreme. You have kindergarten, especially in California, but this is now a nationwide issue. In kindergarten, they're telling children they might have been born in the wrong body, and we won't tell your parents if you want to wear a dress to school, little boy. I mean, that's the level we're at. In California now, they've got gender support plan and individual transition plan, where they'll start giving your kid hormones and puberty blockers to prepare them for genital mutilation. I mean, I can't even believe I'm saying this.
Right.
And yet this is the reality of what our children are going through now at the youngest possible ages in government schools. And they're being just saturated in this race mongering and the, you know, hatred of America and the hatred of Christianity. I mean, our kids are not safe in the public schools, folks. It's that simple. We've got to get them out. And so, you know, for people who really want the condensed version, that's why we produced this. It's a whole special issue dealing just with the education. You can get a copy of this if you go to thenewamerican.com/rescuing our children. You can get it in PDF for like 75 cents. If you want a physical copy, we have to mail you one. I think it costs like $3. And you can get 100 if you want to give it to your pastor and your neighbors. It's an excellent tool because we have Duke and Israel and you know, great Americans who've worked on these things, showing the problem and then the solution. So, you know, that'll give you a really comprehensive overview of what's happening and where this is going and how you can free yourself and protect your children. But, you know, I'll just wrap it up by saying, you know, people tell me all these different excuses. Oh, I can't afford to get my kids out. You can't afford not to get your kids out, okay? When they come home and they want to mutilate themselves and they're suicidal and they're taking heroin. And I mean, I've seen this in my own family, in my own community. This is ubiquitous now. You can't afford not to get your children out. And then, you know, the salt and light thing. Oh, my kids are going to be salt and light. Would you send your children into a war, right? Would you send your children off to go fight in Iraq or, you know, whatever? Of course you wouldn't, right? We know better than to send our children into armed conflict. And yet God tells us crystal clear, right? Go to Ephesians 6:12. We are in a spiritual war. That's right. And if you don't recognize that you're in a spiritual war, you might be on the wrong side. So you probably better get up to speed. But we're in a spiritual war right now. The idea that we would send our children into battle alone, without us, where our enemy holds all the power, where the enemy holds all the commanding heights. They're the ones who are going to teach your children. I mean, it's just unfathomable to me. And I know a lot of Christians, like, they don't want to think about it this way because, hey, you know, we both have to work and we don't have enough money. You know, I tell people I would live in a cardboard box before I would send my children to a public school. And I don't mean that in a condescending way at all. Mom and dad, who you've got your kids in a public school, I'm not judging you. You know, it's just you don't know these things because your pastor hasn't told you and the fake media hasn't told you. So now I'm telling you because I love you and because I love your kids and I don't want them to be destroyed. I don't want them to be brainwashed. I don't want them to turn against you and turn against your church and turn against our country. I think, frankly, the only solution, you know, to go to with the title of this show, the only way we're going to be able to save our freedoms, our nation, our families, our churches, absent, you know, just straight divine intervention and God, you know, just comes down and fixes it all for us, is going to be to get our children out of the public schools and to make sure they're getting a good, godly, Christ-centered education, either in our home schools or in a good Christian school. If for whatever reason you absolutely can't homeschool, but parents, you have no higher responsibility to your children than to make sure they're getting a good education in the things of God. And that's on you, folks. That's on you.